The top scams and how to spot them. The Australian share market has its second best day of the year, and Latitude Financial receives a ransom note. The details coming up. It's your daily 10-minute business and finance news wrap for this Tuesday, the 11th of April, 2023. Later, Latitude Financial receives a ransom note. What did it do about it? But first, to scams. And the Australian Banking Association has launched an awareness campaign about the growing number of scams out there. The biggest to be worried about include bank impersonation scams, e-toll scams, investment scams, and invoice scams. So what can you do about them? How do you spot them? And what's the role of banks in all of this? For more, I spoke with the ABA CEO, Anna Bligh.
The toll one is very common. And what's interesting about that is that one of the things that scammers try to do is to create a sense of urgency so that your normal caution doesn't kick in. So they'll send a message saying something like, you have just purchased a new laptop, call this number. And you say, I didn't buy a laptop. So you quickly ring the number and you're suddenly talking to a scammer. Similarly, many people will be familiar with the one that says you have unpaid tolls. And no one, people get worried. Oh, I thought I'd paid that bill. What happened? So they call the number. There's another one where people, where the scammer sends a message to somebody saying, Mum, I've lost my mobile phone. I'm using my friend's. Can you call me on it? And then says, Mum, I haven't got any money. Can you send me $20? And one of the worst, I think, is where very sophisticated groups are now using the telecommunication system to impersonate a bank. So to come into your bank thread and to tell you that there is money coming out of your account, they think it's a scam, you need to transfer money out of your account very quickly. And people are, you can really understand why people would get caught by that one. But there's a very, very important fact here, and that is that your bank will never, ever call you and tell you to transfer money out of your account. If they think you are being scammed, they will freeze your account. They will not ring you and tell you to take your money out and transfer it somewhere else, on the phone. So if you ever get somebody telling you to do that, saying they're your bank, hang up. It's a scammer.
So what are some tips for consumers? In particular, there's Pay ID, which the banks use. How does that work, and how can that be a safeguard for consumers?
Well, there are many different kinds of scams, and Pay ID is a safer way of transferring money and having confidence that you're transferring it to the right person. Because there is a scam going around where the scammers can actually intercept an email from, say, your plumber, change the banking details of the email, of the invoice, and you think you've paid the bill, and it's not till 30 days later when your plumber says, you haven't paid my bill. What Pay ID does is allow you to pay directly. You have to register for it with your bank, and it allows you to pay directly to the phone number of somebody that you know. So a phone number is a unique identifier. So if you, once you have that plumber's phone number, you can just pay directly to the phone number and not worry about BSBs, account numbers, and all those things that can sometimes go wrong. So that's one thing you can do, is register for Pay ID, talk to your bank about that. But I think the other thing is not to ever let someone on the other end of the phone push you and create that sense of urgency. If you feel someone is doing that, just pause, just take a minute. And if it doesn't feel right, it's probably not right. You can hang up and then ring your bank. And your bank will be able to tell you straight away, no, we haven't been doing anything on your account. So you know that you've saved yourself from a problem.
If someone is scammed, What then is the role of the bank? Will they ever see that money back?
If you think that you've just transferred your money to a scammer, then you should call your bank as quickly as you can, because as I said, sometimes they're amateurs, and the bank can see where the money has gone. They can contact the other bank and have the money frozen and sent back to you. But some of these are very sophisticated criminal outlaw gangs operating in other parts of the world. And you may find that the money that the banks can actually see where it went, but it's now gone onto a dodgy crypto platform, in another country, and the bank can't get it back. So speed is very important, and which is why, because the money can be gone so quickly, it's why you really need to just stop and think, does it feel right? Can you hear alarm bells ringing? Listen to your gut. And if you've got even a tiniest doubt, hang up, ring your bank, and you may find you've saved yourself a lot of money.
Final question. Someone listening or watching this thinking, hey, this sounds all too scary. Technology's changed so much. There's so many scams out there. How do we install confidence in them in the banking system?
Well, I would say that there are literally millions of scams that never make it to a customer. Australian banks are very, very safe by global comparisons. Unfortunately, banks, once upon a time, bank robbers turned up at the front door of the bank with a sawn-off shotgun. People have always wanted to try and rob banks of other people's money. Now it's a very different sort of way of doing it, but the same things apply. Banks work very hard to keep your money safe. One of our major banks estimates that they, on average, every year repel 600 million attacks on their cybersecurity perimeter. Now, some of that are attackers trying to get into scam, others are trying to get into steal identities. But that 600 million are ones that you never see. Unfortunately, from time to time, these scammers, it's not so much that they get into the bank system, it's that they find a very tricky way of convincing you to voluntarily transfer your money out of the country, off to someone else. It could be a romance scam. It could be an investment scam. People telling you this is an investment where you can earn, a 15, 20% return on your money. If it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. So banks work very hard and invest a lot of money in keeping their cyber space safe. But what they can't do is protect you from yourself if you rush in and do whatever someone on the other end of the phone tells you. So slow it down. And if they keep pushing you to go faster, it's not your bank. It is someone trying to take your money.
Anna Bligh there, the CEO of the Australian Banking Association. Now to the Australian share market, which had a good day. The S&P ASX 200 up by 1.3%. Gold producers leading the charge. Newcrest Mining up by more than 5%. It follows a revised takeover offer from Newmont at the value of $32 billion. For more on the day's market action, I spoke with Jamie Hanna from VanEck.
So the US was actually open last night. They don't actually celebrate Easter Monday, and the market was up. That's a good start for the market in Australia. We've had some good news come out, though. Obviously, the consumer sentiment statistic came out for April. They were up about 10% from last month, and that's on the back of the RBA deciding to halt their interest rate rises, as well as some good news coming out of China that the tariffs will be reviewed going forward. So that information has obviously pushed the market higher. Big resources are obviously up over 2%, the likes of BHP, Rio and Fortescue all doing strong, as well as the big banks in Australia. All four of the majors are above 1%. So combined, it's produced a relatively strong day on the ASX.
Big corporate story of the day. Latitude Financial today confirming it received a ransom from the cyber attack on the company last month. It says it is not paying it. So, of course, the same thing happened with Medibank last year, the company not paying a ransom. What do you think shareholders are now demanding of all companies when it comes to data protection, and how big of an issue is it?
Globally, cybersecurity is an extremely important issue to every single company in the world. There's no doubt that there are various regimes around the world, including government organizations, which are either turning a blind eye to cyber attacks or indeed supporting it. So every corporate company or any company in the world now needs to have a review of their cybersecurity. Shareholders are demanding that all listed companies that they invest in have spent the money, have put in the time and effort and improved their cybersecurity. And it's not just their cybersecurity, it's also training of their staff. Because a lot of access to the gateways or the keys to a lot of these cybersecurity attacks are through individual staff members clicking on links or carrying out something it's been sent to them. Now, anyone can be a victim of a cyber attack, but from a company's perspective and shareholders, it's important they protect their data. Medibank, we saw what happened there, and there's no doubt that Latitude Financial are obviously have to focus on their cybersecurity efforts and look at how the access was actually gained. Investors obviously want to protect the data of the company and protect the share price, but individuals who are a victim of a cyber attack obviously do not want any of their personal details out there. So it's up to every company to do everything they can and spend the money to improve their cybersecurity.
Let's talk some international stuff. We're about to enter US reporting season. We've got inflation data out of the US this week as well. What's the feel here?
So tonight we're going to see this US CPI print. It's expected to fall from around 6% down to the low 5% range. This is obviously good news that the inflation data is pulling back in the US, and we'd expect to see something like that. However, what we're not seeing is the stickier side of inflation, which is wage and service inflation. Is probably not going to pull back. We've seen some of the data come out of the US that the unemployment rate is still falling. It fell from 3.6 down to 3.5% last week. And that means that there's still inflationary pressures as wages are being pressured to go up. Without enough employees to be hired, people have to pay more money for the same role. And this type of inflation is very sticky, and it's hard to break the cycle to actually get out of this. And what that means for the earnings seasons coming up is that the underlying risks involved with inflation, which is obviously increasing wages, will impact the bottom line. We should also see potential impacts from rising interest rates in the US. So it'll be interesting to see how the companies weather these storms. The big focus will be on the large tech companies in the US, which had a very good COVID period. But going forward, they've had a lot of layoffs this year. Most of the major tech companies have laid off thousands of workers. So a lot of the focus is going to be on the bottom line of these big tech companies, and their reports and their earnings results will impact the market in a big way.
And just finally wrapping up, in this current environment, where do you see the opportunities?
Opportunities are probably within quality companies, and they've really outperformed over the past couple of months. And we're talking about companies that have low debt, and that's obviously a key factor with rising interest rates. They also need to have things like stability of earnings, so that over the last few quarters, the last few years, they've maintained a very solid, return on their profits. And then finally, they need some, a higher return on equity. So these type of quality companies have generally done well in this type of environment, and the focus should really be for investors on these types of companies. A little bit of focus also on gold companies at the moment. There's a lot of takeover talk, and certainly gold prices rallied a lot. So gold's obviously a focus, as well as infrastructure, which generally have a lot of inflationary hedge built into them in their contracts. So they tend to perform well when inflationary pressures stay high.
Jamie Hanna there from VanEck.
This SBS On The Money stream is provided for informational purposes only. The content in this stream should not be understood as constituting advice or a recommendation. It is not personal advice, and it does not consider your personal circumstances or objectives. You should contact a licensed professional before making any financial decision.